Welcome to the second video in our Nova Pro series. Now in the first video we actually looked at the Nova Pro and got that thing flying and tested out the GPS capabilities, and we saw that it actually worked pretty well out the box. Now I'd probably go and do some calibration through the APM pieces, and we show that in our APM series, but as a model that was ready to fly, it did a really good job. Now, one of the things that most people want to do with a model like that is, rather than have a fixed camera at the bottom, they want something like a gimbal. So what we're going to do in this video is we're going to add this gimbal onto the bottom. Now this is a Quanum Q2D brushless gimbal. This is the box, but we're not going to look at that, it's quite boring. The stuff that's in it is here. So here's the gimbal itself. So it is a 2-axis gimbal, which means it supports the camera tilting up and down pitch and also in roll as well. Underneath it has a little controller that we can plug into the underneath of the Nova Pro, and or whatever model you have actually, because this will fit other ones as well. We have a little switch on the side to decide how it's going to perform, and we have a power connection here as well. So what we'll do is we'll add this to the bottom. As well as the actual gimbal, we get a little balancing weight. The idea is, if you're using a slightly lighter or different weighted camera to the one that this is built for, which is a GoPro Hero 3, you can just pop that on the end, and that provides an extra bit of weight on that side. Now we shouldn't need that, but that's a nice addition to having the kit. The other things that come in the box is a bag of bits that you always get with something like this. The main things we're interested in here, apart from the fact that you get the screws, the little servo connectors to connect up the controller to the outputs on the bottom of the model, a little screwdriver to adjust the potentiometers on the bottom of the controller, because it has one for kind of pitch and yaw. We can change those in here. The thing that we're really after, there it is the thing that we're actually going to put on the bottom of the model, because the way it works is that that is the top, so that's going to be against the bottom of our model, and there's the anti-vibration mounts, and what we need to do is mount this underneath. Now on the bottom of the Nova Pro, if I just bring that in, maneuver it around the camera, okay, there is the top part of the gimbal that we used for the first video or two in the series, and you can see it's just connected by 2 screws. It's got 2 tapped holes at the bottom of the chassis. Now we need to be able to position this in that space, but there aren't 2 holes, so this is kind of going to go upside down. So to make that fit, this is the piece that we need to use. So we need to first mount this piece, try and do it without my hand being in the way, mount this piece at the bottom, then we screw the top plate into it. So let me do that and come back, and then let's start making up some of the connections. The other thing we're going to need is the little bag of bits that came with your Nova Pro. We looked at that in the very first video, because we've got a power cable and thing in there. So let me get these little screwdrivers and hex drivers working. Let me just screw this to the bottom. That should be a quick 10-minute job. So installing it is actually a little bit easier than I thought. Once you've got that cross brace on the top, then installing the rest of it is straightforward, because there's actually 2 little holes, the camera's picking them up, there's kind of one there and one on the other side, that allow you to get to the screws to mount everything on. So you don't have to have that awful fight that you sometimes do with these vibration isolating rubber bits, where you have to try and get them in and out, which can be quite messy. Okay, so that's the physical installation, which is pretty straightforward. A couple of points I like about it: we kind of nice and clear of all of the connections here at the bottom, the electrical connections, and also nice and clear for the battery compartment to open as well. It's just enough out the way. So now we've got that, we can actually start wiring this thing up. Now to wire it up, there are only going to be 3 connections really. The first 2, if we look at the back of the gimbal, you can see we have it clearly mounted pitch, roll, and then an auxiliary connection. So one of these is going to be all the negatives. Fortunately, it isn't clear which way round this should go. Now there is the notches, but we just need to confirm which is the negative side, because they're very carefully shown us where it is on the actual model itself. So the way, if you're never sure of how to connect something together, Easiest thing to do is grab your multimeter, pop it into kind of ohm mode. Here we go. And put it on 2 of the pins in the row, because the grounds are usually all connected together. So if I just put those together, they're completely connected. The other side isn't. So I know that those are the grounds. So that's the tip. So knowing that, I can plug my cables in. And there we go. These ones are the ones that actually have the little tab at the side. So what we're going to do is we've got to plug that one in. There should be another one in here somewhere. There it is. We'll plug this one the same way with the ground at the back. Fantastic. And now we have to plug them into these 2 ports here. Now it doesn't really matter which way round we do it in terms of, you know, the left one or the right one, but you can see it says that the outside pin, try and get it so the can't really see it on the camera. The outside pin is ground, middle is positive, so it needs to go in that way round. So the black wire needs to be towards the camera. So that should be the signals connected up for the control. So the next thing we need to do is plug in the power. Now the lead that comes with the gimbal looks like that. So you have kind of a JST connector at one end and the power adapter for this thing on the other. With the kit that actually comes with the Nova Pro, you get a cable that looks like that, which has the right connections on either end. So we can plug the power in gimbal, and we can also then plug the power, make sure I've got this the right way around, into the gimbal power output on the bottom of the model as well. So there we are, we have all of the wiring done too. So let me put a GoPro in here. You shouldn't fire up a gimbal with that camera in because it's not balanced, and then let's come back and we'll fire everything up and see how this is actually going to work. So we've powered the model up and we've also got the radio turned on and connected as well. So first of all, let me show you that the gimbal is working. So here, as I move the model around, you can kind of see that it is stabilizing the camera beautifully. So there we go, as I'm flying around that's going to be a lot smoother. The other cute thing as well, and let me actually bring the camera down so it's almost eye level with this, and it'll kind of show you better what's going on. So again, here's the gimbal and there's me flying around and the camera is staying beautifully level. And what we've done, because we've plugged those 2 controls into the bottom of the model, if you remember on the very first videos that we did, move that out as far away as I can get, there are these 2 additional controls here on the radio called auxiliary 1 and auxiliary 2, and these are the rotary connections that we're using under the bottom of the model. So if I move auxiliary 1, it's then moving it, stabilizing left and right, so we can fine-tune that with that control there. Again, the gimbal reacts nice and smoothly. And then the other control, and this is just the way we have it plugged in, controls whether or not we're looking up or down. So I can actually decide whether I want it very slightly pointed down, or I can decide whether I want it to be pretty much level or facing up. And these are set by these 2 controls. And say, for example, I wanted to have a real good look at the ground as I'm flying, so I really crank it over, then as the model's flying it will still maintain that orientation as it's flying along. So hopefully that helps those of you put this together. This again is the Q2D brushless gimbal. Thank you to Hobby King for sending us this to add to the model. I'll put a link in the description both to the copter and to the gimbal itself. Word of caution, I get a lot of comments and questions about, oh right, can I use this to fly FPV? You could, but I wouldn't recommend it. The problem with flying with a stabilized gimbal is one of the things with FPV is the bank of the craft and the position of the horizon in the screen lets you know whether or not you're going left, right, forwards, backwards, What I'm going to do in one of the future videos is we'll add a little FPV camera, probably up here, to fly with, and then this one's out the way. The other benefit that you might have spotted over the gimbal, over the standard setup, is that the gimbal itself is putting the lens exactly in the middle, in the front. So as you can see in this footage, it means that we're getting a little bit less of the legs left and right, whereas in the very first video when we used the standard support, we were catching one of the legs on the edge of the screen. So definitely worthwhile having a look at this if you have a Quanum Nova Pro or something else with those kind of connections at the bottom, because this is a cute little brushless gimbal, works really nicely and actually fits beautifully under the model. Thank you for taking the time to watch that video. There are lots of other videos on the channel and they're carefully ordered into playlists, so you may find that there are other videos on this same subject that you can go and watch. So I would recommend going into the playlist area of Painless 360 YouTube channel and looking around and seeing what there is. You never know what you might find. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and happy flying.